The tube country scenario is a good opportunity to practice a couple different applications of essentially break-even analysis. Let's take a look. Tube country rents circular rubber rafts that its customers use to float down the Ishitani River. Okay, got it. Tube country owns a fleet of 200 rafts, each of which is returned the same day it's rented, and each raft can only be rented once during a business day. Okay. Rough water along the Ishitani River often causes rafts to become scratched and leak air, so the staff of Tube Country is constantly repairing rafts before their next rental. All right. As a result, Tube Country estimates that 5% of its rental fleet is unavailable for rent at any given time. Okay. Tube Country rents rafts for $5 each, incurs $1 in variable cost, and they pay $20,000 in fixed costs annually. This sounds very familiar to me. Yes, these are the inputs of break-even analysis. That $5 rental per raft, that is our revenue per unit, because apparently up here the rafts are essentially in being rented units of production each day. They said flat out there was a variable cost of $1, perfect, and there is a fixed cost of $20,000 annually. That's a comma right there. Now, this is handy because what's the first question here on this page? How many rentals does Tube Country need to break even? The quantity to break even is the fixed cost divided by the revenue minus the variable cost. That's the formula for breaking even. We just need to, in the case of Tube Country, fill in the relevant numbers. All right. 20,000, you notice it did say each year. That's what they pay each year. $5 is what they collect on each rental. $1 is what they spend. So that winds up being 20,000 divided by 4, or, right, that's where we get the answer, 5,000. What are these? These are rentals. This firm called Tube Country needs to rent 5,000 rafts or conduct 5,000 rentals each year to break even. Okay, good. Now, what's the next question? How many rentals does Tube Country need to make a year to earn $5,000 profit? Okay. This is actually a form of break-even analysis. Notice what the question's asking. Not breaking even, that's where you just cover your costs, but making $5,000 in profit. Fine. How many rentals do they need to make? Well, it better be something greater than 5,000 because that's what they need to break even. The best way to answer this question actually is just to reason through it because it's really logic. The question here is profit. And I ask myself, okay, fine, how does Tube Country make profit? Well, they charge a certain amount for each raft. Let's let Q, always Q is the quantity, be the number of rafts. There's the revenue that they collect in a year. But that's not profit because then there are costs associated with this. There's a fixed cost every year, plus there's a variable cost for, again, each raft. So the variable cost times the annual quantity would calculate the total variable cost. Right, revenue minus cost equals profit. This problem is fixing the other side of that equation, in essence. It's saying, fine, how many rentals do they need to conduct to make 5,000 in profit, and how many rentals do they need to make? That's the Q. Oh, so I just need to take this expression and solve for Q. I've got values for these other numbers. I just didn't bother to write them in particular, but now I can fill them in. We already know, this hasn't changed, that they collect $5 for every raft. So it's 5 times Q, there's what they're collecting, minus the same old 20,000 they have to spend each year in fixed costs, minus 1 times Q, which is, I'm just going to write Q, it's 1 times Q. That is what has to equal 5,000 to answer this question. Solve for Q. So this is what over here, 4Q. And I'll add 20,000 to both sides, so we wind up with 25,000 on the right hand side. So Q equals, on my calculator, 6,250. That's the answer. If Tube Country wants to make 5,000 a year in profit, they have to rent 6,250 times, which is good. I'm just checking my math here. Greater than the 5,000 to break even? Yes. All right. What's the next question? Ooh, it's long. I wonder if it's going to be a lot of work. Let's look at it. Last year, the owner of Tube Country, Robert Bobber Gowdy, had an opportunity to acquire additional 200 rafts for his rental fleet when a competing rental raft company was going out of business. Okay. Instead, Bobber Gowdy decided to keep his fleet its original size. Okay. Even though we often rent all 200 rafts on a busy day, he said it wouldn't have been worth it increasing the size of the fleet to 400. If you have any more than 200 rafts rented, you can't fit all your rafts on the truck when you're collecting them back from the Itchitucknee River. This means you have to make multiple trips to the river. This costs more and takes more time, and the folks who run Itchitucknee River State Park also charge you penalties, more costs, for leaving your rafts around. Basically, if you get greedy and rent more than 200 rafts, you'll actually, and here's a key statement, wind up making a lot less money. What Bobber Gowdy has just explained can best be described as what? What very important phrase from this so-called body of knowledge? Bobber Gowdy is talking about a diseconomy. Economy. I misspelled it. Diseconomy of scale. Or diseconomies of scale. All right, because what is he describing? The opportunity, this business about acquiring the additional rafts is an opportunity to create capacity. And what he's saying is that if you operate as in the actual amount you rent, beyond the 200, you generally make less money because all these other things kick in, like all the rafts don't fit on the truck. Therefore, and like he said, it's not worth it. We want to stay at around 200, which he's indicating, if they didn't ask this, but here's another good vocabulary phrase. He's indicating that like the around 200 rafts in the fleet is an optimal operating level. He's already at it. And to operate beyond that would be a diseconomy of scale. Okay. Last part. This year, Itchitucknee River State Park has become concerned that too many people are floating down the river, scaring the wildlife. Bobber Gowdy has heard a rumor that Tube Country may be restricted to no more than 2,500 raft rentals annually. Okay, that means that the rumor is that Itchitucknee State Park is going to intervene and fix what we've been calling Q, the number of annual raft rentals, at that number. Okay, what is the minimum that Tube Country can charge for a raft rental and still break even if they rent exactly that many, because they're capped now a year? Notice what this question is asking, it's asking about what we've been calling R, the per unit revenue earned. Oh, all right. So we need to track down what should they charge in order to break even. We can use the break-even formula. We can use the break-even formula because we know that it's fixed cost over revenue minus variable costs. And Itchitucknee State Park might, I mean, that's the rumor, come in here and say that that has to be this. If you want to break even, you can't rent any more than that. Right. So I could just actually solve for R because I know that this isn't going to change. The fixed cost is still the 20,000. And the variable cost is still 1. And here's Itchitucknee State Park's involvement. That's got to equal 2,500 if you just want to break even at their cap. Okay, I solved for R. I solved for R, so what? This turns out to be 20,000 I'm going to multiply both sides by r minus 1 just to neaten it up. Right? So then I can clean it up by adding 2,500 to both sides. So it's like 22,500 over here, and it's still 2,500 r. Oh, okay, so r equals, on my calculator, when you take the 2,500 and you divide it into the 22,500, it says 9. What that's say? Oh, that's the answer. And like I wrote, it's $9. So if Ichetuckney State Park imposes that limit of 2,500 rentals annually, Tube Country needs to charge $9. Notice we started out with them originally charging $5. They need to charge $9 on each raft to break even.